great to see you all here. Taoiseach, guests, can I add my really warm welcome to everybody here this morning. It's great to see you. What we are going to do today is, first of all, we are awarding the Business Working Responsibly mark to companies who have achieved that standard, and it is a fantastic achievement. That's number one. And Taoiseach is going to say some words, and she's also going to present and acknowledge those companies. The second thing that we're going to do is that we are going to talk about the UN's sustainability goals. So the Sustainable Development Goals are really important in our lives. They are agreed by 192 countries have signed up to the goals. They were launched last September, and they really are the KPIs for the planet. And I know Professor Sachs is going to talk about them. And also, we are going to have Chris Martin talking how you align a business with the goals. But I'd like to put a little bit of framing on the goals, because I think the goals are the answer to some of the questions that are keeping CEOs up at night. I'm going to give you some examples. When we talk to CEOs, they'll say that one of the problems that they're having is how do we engage millennials? And it's not just millennials now, it's Generation Z. What do we do to engage our staff at that level? But millennials and Generation Z are not like you and me, because they grew up in a time of great uncertainty. So we have, since they were born, climate change, resource depletion. They've heard of population, the population of the world is getting too much. So they have grown up with a sense that they have to change the world. It can't remain, it's unhealthy, and it can't remain the way it is. So what they're looking for in business is, how do we change the world? Who do I work for that really has purpose? So if you look at the goals, I can't see another more northern star than the goals that could actually help you. If you can align your business with what is happening in the goals, I think that millennials will understand that you're a business with purpose. They also are looking for leaders. So leaders who are real about what they're trying to achieve. The world that they're inheriting is quite a threatening one. So we have to change that into something that is not threatening and that it's a joy to live in. The second thing I think that the Millennium Goals do or the Sustainable Development Goals do, is that they're looking, I think Larry Fink of BlackRock says this best. He says that we spend our time as CEOs looking at short-term outcomes. And everybody talks about, we're working for the long term. Well, could this be the long term? Could this be the horizon that we're talking about? This has to be achieved by 2030. So if we are talking about investing, is this not what we should be investing in? He uses this phrase. He says, Larry Fink says that we hear strong support from corporate leaders for taking such a long-term view. But many companies continue to engage in practices that may undermine their ability to invest in the future. I mean, I think this is a really polite way of saying that business leaders are not doing enough. I think the sustainability goals also offer real opportunities. Both Professor Sachs, the World Business Council on Sustainable Development, and the World Bank say that to achieve the goals, what we're going to need is $2 to $3 trillion of investment. But that if we do that, what it does is it brings a 20 trillion payback. Now, it's in areas that really matter. It's in health, it's in education, it's in water, it's in food, it's in things like construction. It's building to the best. And for those CEOs who are wondering where growth is going to come from, and good growth, that's where it's going to come from. The worrying thing about this is, and Mark Carney, who is this Governor of the Bank of England, and he is half Irish, so at some stage we'd love to have him over here. But Mark, he says that it isn't good enough to just have private niche players. So all the finance people in the audience has to pay attention to this. He says that we are not going to get the SDGs unless we have mainstream finance. I'll just quote him. He says, while they are important catalysts, private niches, social impact investing, or public sources like multilateral development banks, this will not be sufficient. Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals will require mainstream finance. We need to build a new system. This is true. We need a new finance system. We all realise that. It's how do we do it? One that delivers sustainable investment flows based on both resilient, market-based and robust bank-based finance. We need finance for the long term. The other area that I think that we grapple with, and we have to think about this, is food security. Sonny Verghese, who runs OLAM, he spoke in front of the UN recently, and what he said was, we have to change the system, how we deliver our food. That if we do that, there is enough food on the planet for ourselves and many, many more. So we have to think about how do we change those systems. Number 5, I couldn't let another morning go by without just mentioning gender inequalities again. It's not getting any better. Gender inequalities the world over is getting worse. And you would think at this stage that we'd have got it. That we cannot attain a sustainable world without having gender equalities, but I won't go on about it. Finally, just everybody here knows that we need stable communities. We want to live in a stable community. We want our children to have stable communities. And business needs stable, thriving communities and vice versa. So without those goals, we won't have that. And what the goals is this wonderful vision that all of us on the planet could have stable communities on which we are fed, educated, that we've water, that we are stable, that women are treated equally, etc., etc. So it is a wonderful vision for what we can do. So I know they're big goals, like no poverty. But can I just tell you a few things that we have done? We, as human beings, have done. If you were born in the 1900s, you would live 40 years less. Imagine that. In 100 years, that's what we've managed, to increase our lifespan by 40 years. It's really incredible. For the first time in the world, we have less than 10% of people in absolute poverty. Do you know what that means? 90% of the planet is now above absolute poverty. Isn't that brilliant? That means with a push, a slight push, that we will get everybody out of absolute poverty. And then we work to get no poverty. But the goal is there. You'll really like this one. We're getting smarter. Did you know that? For every decade, because of our schooling, our education, and because we're lifelong learners, we are getting smarter by 3 IQ points per decade. I feel great about that because I'm in my 5th decade, so I am obviously a lot smarter than many people in the room. More countries than ever are now democracies than dictatorships, which really does your heart good, and we need to continue that. The great thing is the human rights of children have been advanced. Did you know that there has been a massive decrease in the number of females under 18 having children? In fact, the extraordinary thing is, I don't know whether you know Hans Rosling, but Hans Rosling, if you haven't seen it, please go to YouTube and put in Hans Rosling and population, because this is what Hans Rosling says, and he proves it. That the population on the planet is going to plateau at 11 billion. And if Sonny Verghese is right, we have enough food for everybody at 11 billion. So if we knew two things which we've never known before, that we have to prepare our planet for 11 billion people, and after that it will be a steady state. And if we could achieve these goals, what an extraordinary vision we will have. It would be a wonderful place, and it's in our lifetime. We're only talking about 14 years. So I think the Sustainable Development Goals are what all of us should be working to. So what's stopping us? Well, that's the question for us this morning. Does Ireland have the business leadership that will create a future where businesses will thrive and, more personally, foster a society that you deem fit for purpose for your family in 2030? I think that we have the leaders, when I think the leaders that have the Business Working Responsibly mark, and business in the community is the platform for leaders to work together. So that's what we're about. We want companies to be the best they can be. And then once their house is in order, that we begin to collaborate to really achieve transformational change, not just for Ireland, we're a global, open economy, but for the world. And that's what we should do, put our shoulder to the wheel to achieve this. And that's what we're going to reflect on this morning.